everyone. My name is David McLeod, and I am your life mastery coach and author of the delightful and delicious little book, A Life to Die For. I'm also one of the co-authors in the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care, as well as a co-author in a number of other books that I'm working on. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. This is episode 234, and today's title is Navigating Life's Transitions. Well, life transitions are an intrinsic part of our fast-paced lives as we navigate the complex web of education, career, relationships, and everything else that goes along with that. It's easy for these transitions to just rush by unnoticed. Yet if we pause and take stock, we can become aware of the potential they hold for profound personal growth and healing. Each shift in life's trajectory presents a unique opportunity for self-discovery and transformation, not just for your benefit, but also for the benefit of those around you. The big deal lies in how you choose to handle these transitions. Whether you perceive them as inconveniences to rush through, bemoan them as bad luck, or seize the chance to live a more authentic life. It's really a question of choice, isn't it? Well, major life transitions are the milestones that shape your journey from birth to adulthood, from education to employment, from love to loss, and ultimately the completion of mortality. Terrain you cover on this journey is vast and diverse, marked by moments of joy and sorrow, growth and stagnation. Some may find these transitions overwhelming, while others use them as stepping stones for a more profound understanding of themselves and their purpose. In the hustle and bustle of life, it's easy to overlook the valuable lessons embedded in these experiences. But with a mindful approach, you can harness the challenges the life throws at you, and you can gain wisdom, foster personal development, and embark on a journey of healing and self-discovery. Now, my guest for today's episode of Life Mastery TV is none other than certified mindfulness and meditation teacher, Jere Friedman, who returns to the program to share his perspective on dealing with some of the issues related to these life transitions. It's going to be another deep and powerful discussion, so please join me in welcoming Jere back to the show. Hey there, Jere. Come on back on camera now, and also unmute yourself.
Hi, David. Yay, great to see you. Thanks so much for having me back on. I really enjoyed the other time I was on the show, and excited to be back today.
We had a fabulous discussion last time, and I'm just really impressed with the kind of background that you have. And one of the characteristics of your life is you're into these gongs and sound and all that kind of really, really cool stuff that most of us only dream about. And I remember the last time when we were on the show, I think you had a big giant gong behind you in the backdrop.
I did, and I thought about doing that today. I chose not to, but that's, if we're going to talk about transitions, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about this, but the pivot point in my life of when I first, I describe it as falling down a rabbit hole of playing the gongs. My heart just really called out to me. I experienced the gongs for the first time, and my heart just said, I must do this. And that was a real pivot point in my life that has really, really benefited me and a lot of other people, directly and indirectly, just in opening me up to a different way of being, a different way of showing up in life, and just making myself available, sharing my gifts, giving myself permission to share my gifts. So going back to your introduction of we have so many transitions in our life, many or most of which we're not even paying attention to. And if we just slow down and pay attention to, what's happening, what's present for me right here, right now, and how can I use this for myself, for you, David, for the audience, for the people I meet in my day-to-day life on the street or wherever. Um, these are all wonderful opportunities if we choose to take advantage of those opportunities, or we can just slide on by and just go on down the road without really seeing the opportunities that are right there for us to grab.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's fascinating. And I remember when you first talked to me about doing this topic, I thought, this is something that I haven't really discussed with anybody else before. I think it is an important topic. And the reality is, we have transitions happening in every single moment. Every single moment is a new moment, and something has shifted. There's constant change going on. Of course, we only think of transitions in terms of the big major life changing things, the crises that happen, all these other sorts of things. And but really transitions are happening all the time. And that's why I chose the image of the leaves changing color
Mm-hmm.
for this story, because if we think about it, these transitions happen over and over and over again. Now it's kind of like, I guess for me, I think of it as traveling in a circle. But when you go around the circle, you're not exactly in the same place, because you've gathered experiences in the process of going around that circle. And so therefore, you're at a different level. Usually, we hope it's a higher level, and hopefully we are gaining and increasing and becoming more aware, more conscious, and so forth of our lives. But sometimes I guess we can make drops down to a lower level to start over, because that's what we want to experience in our lives. So yeah, I think this transition topic is a fantastic one.
I love what you're saying, and it so happens just before I got on the call with you, I was thinking about this, and I was like, okay, exactly what you said. Every moment, from one moment to the next, we have a transition. From the moment we wake up in the morning, that is a transition from the sleep state to the waking consciousness. And then, as we get out of bed and go from one step to the next of our daily process, what's next, what's next, what's next? And it's one transition after the other. The phone rings, or an email comes in, or just whatever, or what's for lunch. Um, one thing to the next, until the moment that we close our eyes and transition from the waking state back to sleep, and again and again and again. And what you're describing is not the circle of life, but the spiral of life. And all of life, everything, every all of creation, it is a spiral. And yes, hopefully we're going up, but sometimes, yeah, we go back down because we haven't quite learned that lesson yet.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and I hate to admit that, how many times have I gone down? Uh, it's one of those topics that I'll save for another day, if you know what I mean. By the way, I just want to say thank you to all you folks who have shown up on the live show. Thank you for being here. If you have questions or comments that you'd like to share with us, please just post them in the public chat there, and we will do our best to get to those questions or comments as they come up. Um, so Jerry, just getting back to this, first, I brought in the topic of the gongs for a reason, because and I know how passionate you are about these instruments and the sounds that they create and the vibration that comes through. But when I think about it, every single beat of a gong is like a signal of a transition. There's definitely a correlation between these two things here, and I don't think it's coincidence at all that you chose not to put the gong behind you. I think this is all part of the somehow we communicate with each other on very subtle levels that don't involve words. It's just a transfer of energy, and so yeah. So I see those gongs as a way of perhaps expressing transitionism, if you like, through the power of sound, through the power of vibration. And every single vibration has even if you hit the gong exactly the same way every single time, it's never going to produce exactly the same sound. And that's the beauty of it. And so if we can raise our awareness and just embrace the sound for what it is right now, that gong note, that instant in time, if we can just simply love it and embrace it and be with it, amazing what we could learn from that. Oh, you're muted there. Sorry. There you go.
Sorry about that. Anything we can do to slow down and pay attention right here, right now, in this moment, enriches our life experience. And uh, that's kind of what I'm all about anymore, is what can I do for myself, for you, for the people in the audience. Anything that we can do to enrich our life experience moment to moment. Um, that's really the focus of my coaching practice, the work that I do as a coach. Sure, I'm helping my clients in whatever area of their life that um, they want to move from point A to point B. But my big question for them is, that's all well and good, but who do you want to be when you get there? What do you want your life experience to be along the way? Because and that's why these transitions are so important to us, um, moment to moment, or the big life transitions, and I'm sure we'll talk about these, some of those as we go along. But what am I here to really learn and experience from all of this, and how can I use that for my benefit, for the benefit of the people I love and care about, for the community at large?
Yeah, that's nice. And you said something I think that's very important. You talked about asking the question, all right, this is all well and good, but who do you want to be when you get there? That is really, I think, the most important question of all. And if in order for me to decide who I want to be when I get there, I have to know who I am right now, right here. And this is one of the challenges that most people deal with. They think they know who they are, but who they think they are and who they really are not necessarily the same thing. Um, for people who have done a lot of personal growth work, I think that who you think you are and who you really are starts to get closer and closer and closer to the truth. And that's been my experience. But it was like far apart when I was quite young, you know. And so I think that the main purpose of every transition is to give us another opportunity to check in with who we really are right now and who we are choosing to be as we move forward in this life.
Yeah, that's right. It's a wake up call. It's a tap on the shoulder. Sometimes it's a punch in the nose. Okay,
Right.
depending on how badly we need to wake up and respond to the call. Uh, and I totally agree with you that as we do our inner work, ideally we begin to see who we really are, not the outer appearances, not the outer masks that we wear, the different roles that we play, but who we really are as a divine being having a human experience,
Right.
and then living from that place and expressing from that place. And as these transitions pop up in our life, whether it's the moment to moment, oh, I just woke up, great, let's get out of bed, what's next, or the big life transitions that can serve as bigger wake up calls. Again, it's a matter of how do I want to show up for this?
Yeah, that's really good. Now you used a key word a while back, I think when you first came on, you used the word pivot. And I hear that word a lot in a business context, but I'd like to hear what it means to you in the context of transitions.
You know what just came to me as you asked that question. I haven't really thought about this, um, but pivot. If you think in terms of a lever, okay, and the fulcrum that the lever rests on and tilts on, that fulcrum is the pivot point for that lever. And if you remember from grade school science, when you started learning about levers, that you can exert a tremendous amount of force or energy on by pushing on one end of the lever, you can exert a tremendous force
Right.
or result on the other end. So these are opportunities in our life where we can really um, create or allow or welcome a big change in ourselves or in the world around us,
Right.
um, off of this pivot point.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting analogy. The idea of the lever arm, and I remember learning about that in grade school science and
Hmm.
being fascinated by, well, if I move this lever this way and the pivot point, here, right, then I can put a heavier weight on this end, and still I can just move it with my fingers.
Yep.
And if the shorter that distance is between the weight and the fulcrum, the less effort I need to take to move that. And this is
That's
something
right.
that's really, really powerful and important. If we can understand where we are, and in fact, we are infinitely powerful, we just don't give ourselves credit for that. If we understand our relationship to the rest of the universe, the cosmos, we can begin to understand with the right lever, I could move the entire cosmos. Now, think about that for a moment.
Yep.
With the right lever, it would have to be very, very long on the lever arm for sure for me to just use my fingers, and very, very short on the other end. But that's the beauty of it. If we understand the relationships between what we are trying to do, the force and the power we're trying to bring forward in the world, then we can do more with less if we have ourselves positioned at the right place on the fulcrum.
David, you know what came forward for me as you were just saying that? You're talking about, and I forget, uh, who the great sage was who says, give me a big enough lever and I can move the universe, move the world.
It was, yeah, I probably heard it from somebody else.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's out there. But here's the thing. We think we think in terms of all of this outer world stuff. But for me, the really, really big work, the heaviest lifting, is the inner work. And again, that's what you and I are here talking about, is how we can use these transition points in our lives moment to moment or on a bigger scale for learning, growth, and healing, um, to, again, enrich our own life experience, to uh, for myself, to help me become a better person in whatever ways I might have room for improvement, and there's plenty of that.
Yep, that's true. Um, I think it's interesting that you mentioned this idea of the outer versus the inner. Um, I have come to believe that there is no outer. There is no out there, out there. It's all just projection, and it's all related to what is coming from in here. Inner is all that really exists. And one of the things that I say to people is in is the only way out. And in fact, out doesn't even exist. So in is the only way in. You know what I mean? So it's these are kind of philosophical, esoteric statements that a lot of people say, "Ah, don't be ridiculous. That's all woo woo stuff." There really is something out there. I can see it. I can hear it. I can taste it. I can touch it. Uh, okay, but how do you know if I took away your physical body and left you with the power of imagination, and you simply imagined all that stuff, how would you tell the difference?
Great stuff, David. You're right on. I love what you're saying.
Yeah, and I mean it is kind of esoteric, but it's just where I've come to in my life now that I've spent nearly 70 years just trying to do personal, well, I haven't done personal growth work for 70 years, but I've had a life of 70 years. And I guess in a way it's all been growth, you know,
Mhm.
although it wasn't really conscious growth until about 32, 33 years ago, something like that.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. So now let's get back to these transitions. Some of
Okay.
them are, as you said, we've got the little tiny, little itty bitty transitions that happen in the instant, in the moment, in the right now kind of thing. And then we have these big things. And of course, there's all kinds of ones in between. So let's talk about some of the big things that happen. You know, things like the loss of a loved one,
Hmm.
the loss of a pet, the loss
Yep.
of a job.
Yep.
All of these things are experiences that almost everybody goes through. And the question is, how do we respond to them? What happens when they show up? It's not about whether they will show up, because we're probably all going to deal with them something like that sooner or later. The question is not so much when they, or if, but when, and then how are we going to respond?
Right. So, and to add to your list, you talk about a number of losses, but there's all sorts of transitions. Getting into a new relationship, a new job, getting into school, graduating from school, so many different things. A marriage, okay, uh, all sorts of transitions, and uh, it's there's an infinite number of ways that we can deal with these things. A lot of us just kind of muddle right along and don't even pay attention and don't even think about it. So what? It's just another day and whatever. And then there's just the whole spectrum of ways that we experience these things and react or respond to them. Uh, and everything from sticking our head in the sand, pretending it didn't happen, wishing it didn't happen, going into victim mode. Why does this have to happen to me? All of that. Why me? What's wrong with me? Or the universe is against me. And all the way through to the other end of the spectrum, as we've already talked about. Of okay, how can I use this for me? How can I see that the universe is really here, trying to help me along in some way? It may be, unpleasant or inconvenient now, or it may be wonderful. This may be what I asked for. Okay, I asked for this. Now what? Right?
You know, how many people
So
say, well, I asked for this, but why me? They still use the same questions. Wait, I don't
Mhm.
deserve this.
I don't deserve this. I'm not worthy.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's an opportunity to step in, to step into it and own that. Yes, you are worthy.
Exactly.
You do deserve uh, the grace that the universe gives us at times. This is something I didn't earn or deserve, but I got it. Let's run with it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody threw me a pass, and well, I'm not much into the sports thing, but I'm thinking football. Someone threw me a pass. I caught it. I got the touchdown.
There you go.
Why does the glory go to me? It was the guy who threw the pass that really did all the work. You know, it's interesting how this happens. You know, we yeah. I have come to believe that the universe only gives me what I have actually asked for.
Hmm.
I may not have asked for it consciously by saying something like, universe, please give me this. But I believe that all of us, even before we got here on this planet, said, I want to have this kind of experience with these certain events happening somewhere along the way in my life. and I want to be able to learn this particular thing. And in my case, I know that what that was for me to become clear about who I really am. I knew that. I know that now. I didn't know it in my early stage. But you see, now that I've gone through all this stuff, I've understood that everything that's happened to me in my life has been something that I, in a way, engineered before it ever happened. And then I promptly forgot about it when I came to the planet. And
That's
so I think that there's a way in which the universe and I and the universe and you, the universe in general, we're all in cooperation and collaboration with one another. You know, even if we don't necessarily recognize the other person that we're working with. You know, and I also believe that some of our support system comes in the form of physical beings who came to this planet and joined us for the journey and maybe showed up to be our nemesis or our enemy, or maybe showed up to be our lover or our boyfriend or girlfriend, or maybe showed up to be our child or our parent. You know, and then of course there are some people or some beings, if you like, who chose to stay in the spiritual realm and they support us from that place. And so we sometimes see these serendipitous things happening in our lives and we don't know where they're coming from, but we have a sense, you know, a sense that we know. It's hard to explain this in words because words just fail to meet the requirements. You know what I mean?
David. I think you just did a beautiful job of expressing that.
Well,
In
thank you.
the spiritual psychology program that I was part of, we say that Earth is a school. We each have a curriculum,
Right.
and we come here to fulfill and complete that curriculum. The good news is we will all graduate at some point.
Right.
Sometimes we have to repeat the class over and over and over again, but we always get another chance, and we will complete. So, yeah,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
all
that
good.
yeah, that's a really interesting thought that we all graduate and graduation may not look the same for you and me.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely
I
not.
think, yeah, I think that sometimes we watch somebody living a life and we say, why does that guy keep doing the same old thing, expecting different results? You know, uh, we think we know what this person's job is. We don't. We don't know that soul's purpose. All right, and so it may be that that particular individuation of consciousness has to go through what appears to me and you to be a total circle of insanity.
Mm,
And we don't know the reason why. Anyway, I see Megan just put in a comment. How
yeah.
do we prepare for the inevitable? I have 4 parents, grandparents, all in their mid 80s, and I want to help myself, my children, and those leaving us soon. I
That
believe Megan might be referring to the eventual passage of the grandparents and the parents. So why don't you take that one on?
that is a beautiful question, and that's one of the uh, uh, major transitions of life. I mean, one thing is certain is that life is a terminal condition, and we're all going to die from it eventually. Um, here, and I'm going to, Megan, I'm going to step back a step or two, um, and share something that I've learned about transitions, and use your question to share that. We as human beings are very, very uncomfortable with uncertainty. Our ego doesn't like uncertainty. It doesn't like the unknown, and we find that just excruciatingly uncomfortable. And so, kind of as a protective mechanism, we do whatever we think we need to do to rush through a situation. And we all have different coping mechanisms. Some of us rush through a situation. Some of us just run the other direction and run away from it. Some of us run and hide, we just have different ways of doing this. And because for everything, there is a beginning and an ending. But every ending is also a beginning of something new. And what we are uncomfortable with is that middle part of, just not knowing, where this is going, or what it's going to look like, or how it's going to happen, or whatever. And our ego just wants to know. It just wants to have certainty in places that we can't know. Okay? We can't know when any of us, our loved ones or ourselves, are going to pass from this life to the next, or to whatever awaits us. And we would like to know. My answer to your question would be, how do you prepare for the inevitable? Is by living in the moment, being present with one another right here, right now, in every single moment, recognizing that for you and your children and your parents and grandparents and the grandparents, that each moment is precious. And what can you possibly do to make that moment richer and more fulfilling and more loving for everyone involved, so that you don't regret, oh, I wish I had said, or I wish I had done.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Jerry. Thank you for that. I think, another thing that I would like to add to this is I'm old enough now that I've had a lot of people that I know have passed over the course of my life. And there have been different reasons for that to happen. Some died young, some were killed in car crashes, plane crashes, different kinds of catastrophic events, and so on. And every single one of them, I look back now and I realize it would have been no different if I had been right there with that person at the moment and they decided to get on a bus and take a trip to a new world that I would never see them again. I would just give them a big hug, give them a big thank you so much for having been in my life. I wish you all the very best on your new adventure, and see where they go. The problem is, I think, as you say, the ego mind really loves to be in control. The ego, and to be in control, the ego mind has to know everything, uh, which, of course, in our physical realm, that's not really possible. However, here's the irony that I have discovered over the course of years, and this comes about as a result of meditation and being in the here and now and all that kind of stuff, is knowing that everything I need to know is already here. And so if there is something that I imagine I don't know that I need to know, I just have to pause, get back into myself, and that knowledge comes to me instantly. It's magical. The universe and I are one. And therefore, all the universe has to include all knowledge, all wisdom, all truth, all everything. It has to include it all. So therefore, I am connected to it. And there is a way for me to get that knowing, but it ain't going to be through my ego mind. It's coming through my heart and soul. That's where it's coming from. It's really quite beautiful, and it's. I think it's hard to explain this to somebody who hasn't had that experience. Who hasn't reached that point where they now are connected to their heart on a regular basis, their soul on a regular basis. So to say this is what happens, yeah, that's like saying when you light a flame, it ignites the whole world or something like that. Uh, it makes no sense to those who haven't had the experience, and you have to go into it, I think. And the only way I can help people to learn how to do that for themselves is by encouraging them to start doing some meditation and getting into that truth of who you really are.
Yeah, what I would add to that is actually, David, they have had that experience. They're just not aware that they've had that experience. Okay.
Okay.
We've all tapped into that inner knowing, or whatever you want to call it, divine guidance or whatever. Um, it's just a lot of the time we're just not aware of what's happening. That, I don't know where that came from. I just, showed up and said or did something, and
There
you
you
just
go.
think it's, yeah, whatever. So,
Well, I think you're bang on when you say that to prepare for the inevitable, stay present in the moment. I think that's a beautiful statement, and I just wanted to highlight that. That's just really, really important.
that, oh, and to add to that, always, always, always tell the people you love that you love them.
Right.
That, we don't tell each other I love you enough. So yeah.
That's right. That's right. And I think it's easy to tell the people you love that you love them, but try telling someone you don't like so much that you love him or her. That's where the ego mind's going to get in the way. And the
I,
truth is, there is no reason not to love every single human being and every other life form in the universe. If you don't, there's no reason not to. And there's every reason to do so because by loving, you induce healing throughout the universe.
you used a word I wanted to come back to. You used a word a minute ago. You said some people are our nemesis.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
And I found myself using that not too long ago. I can't remember exactly the situation. Oh, I do remember. We were having, this is ridiculous, right? We were having trouble with our internet router. Okay. And like, okay. And the tech support, the online, or, the call up on the phone, and the tech support, it was just, for me, like I said, this is my nemesis right now. Okay. Spending literally hours on the phone with, tech support. And for me, it was very frustrating. And I said, this is my nemesis right now. uh, and so, anyway,
Well, it just goes to prove, and I think people need to see this, that you and I, no matter how much work we do, we're going to run into situations like this
oh yeah.
because we're still human beings and we still have ego minds. And our ego minds sometimes get the better of us. The ego mind ain't going to give up just because I've done some personal growth work. It
Mm.
says, wait a minute, I like being in charge. So every once in a while, my ego mind sneaks around behind me and says, okay, I got you now. And then when I wake up to that realization, I look and I say, oh, it's another head slapping moment. I said, I let you get me, didn't I? All right. Now let's get back to our arrangement where my soul is in charge and you get to be maybe a navigator. You get to warn me when things aren't going so well. That's it.
David,
It's fun, man.
I just thought of another aspect of this whole transition thing that I wanted to share, that some of the viewers might find interesting. And by the way, I wanted to recommend a book, and maybe I'll put this in the chat before we go. There's a book that I actually just reread for about the fifth time. And I have recommended or given this book to many, many, many people over the last 35 years or so.
Hmm.
It's called Transitions, and it's by a fellow named William Bridges. Um, and it's a short book. It's a pretty quick read, uh, but he really does, I think, a good job of talking about what are transitions, and why they're important, and how we can really use them for ourselves or whatever. But one of the things that really came forward for me in reading this book, and I spoke about this a minute ago, we have beginnings, we have endings. Every ending is a beginning. That's our transition. That's our pivot point. And we so often, because the uncertainty around transitions, losing something or gaining something, and moving into something, moving out of something old and into something new. The uncertainty is looks like you posted it. Thank you.
I
The
hope that's the right
uncertainty.
one. It's William Bridges.
William Bridges, yeah. The uncertainty is so unpleasant because it's chaotic, it's formless. Okay, we don't know what's going to happen next, and as we already said, the ego doesn't like uncertainty. It doesn't like the unknown. It wants to feel safe. It wants to keep us safe, and anything that's unknown, the ego perceives as unsafe. Here's the thing. The trick is to get really, really comfortable with the uncomfortable, to get comfortable with that unknown, with the chaos. And here's why. In the beginning, the universe was void and formless, and there was a darkness upon the waters. You may have heard these words before. Creation, creativity comes out of chaos. In order for us to create anything new in our lives, there has to be an ending. And there has to be a transition period of chaos before we can launch into a new beginning. And if we rush through that time, we might miss an opportunity to really create something new and beautiful that hasn't been created before. And this is whether you're an artist or a musician or a parent or a teacher or just whatever you do. Creativity that's what we're here for, and we are creators in every moment of our lives. So the more we can get comfortable with that chaotic, uncomfortable in-between space of transition, the better we can create something new, valuable, wonderful, enriching for ourselves, for our loved ones, and for our community and for the world as a whole.
Right. Yeah, that's quite beautiful. I mean, I used to say that every creation involves some degree of destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I like your way of saying it a little bit better because you talk about every creation involves the ending of something, which I guess could be viewed as a form of destruction. But I was thinking
Yeah.
about it this way. If I want to create a new painting, let's say, first I have this blank screen in front of me, a canvas, and then I have these paints over here. Somewhere along the way, I have to transfer those paints from the palette over onto the canvas.
Right.
So there's transition in every single movement of that. And then what happens eventually is the paint is all gone. It's defunct. But so is the canvas. Canvas is no longer what it was before. I really think it's a beautiful metaphor for the whole notion of creativity. Or I shouldn't say creativity. Creativity is the process that we went through. Creation is the result, right? And I just think it's so amazing when we think about every creation involves some degree of destruction or removal of energy. It's a transfer of energy from one form to another.
And allowing that to be okay.
Yeah.
Is like we think of, destruction. That's not good. That's not good. Well, actually, it's necessary.
That's right.
And getting back to the background that you chose for this presentation with the autumn leaves, there you go. we had a beautiful spring, and the plants bloomed, the trees bloomed, put out their new green leaves. It was beautiful all summer. And now, that is decaying. It's dying. We have these beautiful fall colors. And even those pass. They fall off the trees. They have to decay. Why? So that we have new growth in the spring. And that's
Right.
right back to the spiral of life that you were
Exactly.
talking about earlier.
Yeah. It's really quite fascinating, And now I want to come back to this topic of safety, because I think we we humans, and because of our ego minds, as you said, the ego mind has this job. It's to keep us safe, so it's constantly looking for danger, constantly looking for situations similar to bad situations from our past, and saying, oh, this is going to happen again, you better watch out, you better protect yourself, you better run away, you better do this, blah 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 blah. The fact of the matter is, there's no such thing as safety. Safety is a complete illusion.
Right.
you know the, and it's all just a question of inner work anyway. Safety, I've heard people say safety is an inside job, and it really is. It's just about me. Once I get away from thinking about the past, worrying and fretting about that, or having concerns about the future, when all of those go away and I get right back to the present moment, everything is perfect, and there's nothing dangerous about perfect.
Right.
So I don't need to be worried about safety in that place. Now, if I could just carry that thought, that idea, this moment is perfect, this moment is perfect, while I am walking across the street with the bus coming towards me, this moment is perfect. Even if the bus hits me, this moment is perfect.
Well, hopefully you'll jump out of the way.
Well, I mean, I
But
I look at it this way: if a bus hits me, and that is the end of my physical life, okay, am I okay with that?
you have no choice. So,
Yeah, I might as well just simply accept it, right?
and that's so much. That's so much of what I teach as a meditation teacher, which is when we are present in this moment. Most of the time, if there's not a bus, hurtling at me, if there's not a tiger or a person with a weapon threatening me, most of the time in this moment, I'm I'm doing fine. I'm really in a good place. My problems, so to speak, mostly originate from thinking about stuff that happened in the past, which I can do nothing about, or stuff that might happen in the future, which is illusory and most of which will never happen. Any of those can really make me pretty miserable at any given time. And if I
Exactly. And that is the root of all suffering right there.
if I put those aside and pay attention to where I am right now, I'm actually pretty good. So,
Yeah, I think it's even better than pretty good, personally. That's just my opinion. And this is something that it just requires a shift in mindset.
mhm.
You know, Instead of thinking in terms of limitation and lack and all those things that the ego mind tends to focus on, if we can start to think in terms of growth and expansion and abundance and and perfection, if we can allow ourselves to stay connected to that in our hearts, we can push it up into our minds too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to remind people, if any of you have a question for David or me, please post it. And just again, I want to. I think my intention with this topic was. Well, let me give you an example. David, you and I are about the same age, and I have found I picked up the book and reread it recently because I find myself at a pretty significant transition point in my life.
You're referring to this book by Bridges.
The book by William Bridges. Yes, I'm sorry.
Right, okay.
Yes, the transition book. Um, I'm kind of winding down the what I've been doing as my primary source of income over the last 30 years. And I've been thinking about this and planning it and talking about it and looking forward to it for about 15 years. But there was a point over the summer where, there was a decision point and a conversation. And all of a sudden, this became very real for me. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute. This is real. This is happening. And it's meaningful. It's very meaningful because I'm not young. I'm not as young as I used to be. And what do I want the next, whether it's 30 seconds or 30 years of my life to look like, and how can I, live that meaningfully and purposefully and consciously, and not just bulldoze on through. And I see that we have another question from Megan. Feel a transition in your career life. I've been feeling unsettled, a bit of internal rumbling. How do you bring clarity to your thoughts and start to narrow in your calling?
I like that internal rumbling.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something to pay attention to there.
It sounds like you're listening. Yeah, and yeah, that internal rumbling and listening to your heart. Asking yourself what's really in alignment with who I really am. What's really in alignment with who I am and how I want to show up. And let that be your guide. In terms of what the direction is, and ask for that. Ask for, as David said, the universe gives us what we ask for, whether we're conscious that we're asking or not. And so asking, like getting really in touch with what is your heart calling you to do, or calling you to be, and asking for the universe to offer that and provide that, and then paying attention when something shows up, and taking a chance sometimes of stepping across the threshold into something new and perhaps a little bit scary. Fear is excitement holding its breath, is a great expression that I've heard. And just being willing to step up and let your light shine and express who you are and why you're here.
Right. And now that's really ultimately the goal for every single being on the planet, is to know the truth of who you are. Nothing else matters until that piece of the puzzle is resolved. Because the moment you know that truth without question, then the calling of your heart becomes clear. Your purpose becomes clear. Why you are here becomes clear. But it won't really happen with clarity until you know that piece of information. Who am I? And this is something I work with my clients on all the time. So I have a great process that helps people get down to that truth. So, I'm willing to, Megan, if you want to reach out to me later on a separate thread or something, I can talk to you about how we might do that. But ultimately, I believe everything boils down to that one thing: knowing the truth of who I really am. Once I know that, everything else just kind of falls into place. So, and people say, but that's just a ridiculous question because I already know who I am. Okay, well then, why are you having this rumbling? Why are you having this question? Why are you, not sure about what your calling is? It's because you don't really know who you are. Okay, so this is something that I think is really, really important, and I harp on this all the time. Every episode that I do, it boils down to the same single detail. Who you are is the only question that you need to answer. Everything else comes from that.
Right.
All right. So before we move on, I want to talk a little bit about this idea of using these transitions that show up in our lives as a method of growth and healing. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, it's just again anything, whether it's a transition or anything, it's all uh, food for us to pursue these questions of who am I, why am I here, and how can I make a meaningful difference in the world. And so just uh, using, seeing these as learning and growth opportunities, not just muddling on through or uh, getting into victim mode or woe is me or why me or any of that, and not just being a pinball ricocheting back and forth from one bumper to the other and reacting rather than choosing how we want to respond, because we always have a choice. No matter what's going on, we always have a choice of how we want to respond in any given situation. And that was Viktor Frankl's great quote and teaching. Okay, take away everything that you can take away from a human being. You cannot take away our freedom to choose how to respond in any given situation, no matter how horrific it is. And if you know his story, he lived through some pretty tough stuff.
Right.
So, um, this is what, for better or for worse, this is what life is all about. Is opportunities to choose, where we're coming from, how we want to show up, how we want to respond. Do I get it right every time? Oh no, not at all. I like it when I do. It feels really good when I can respond from a place of kindness, loving, gentleness, support, being there for myself or another person. And when I miss the mark, I get to try again. Okay, there will always be other opportunities to show up better. So.
Yeah. Well, Jerry, believe it or not, it's already been an hour. We've been talking. It's a beautiful conversation, a great
Oh,
one
you
as
mean we
always.
get to transition from here to what's next?
Of course, and that's what we're going to do. And what I'm going to do, the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to ask you if you'd like to share some final words with the people who are here and the people who are watching the recording before I close it out.
I think just to sum up what we've already said, it's a wonderful, exciting journey. This human experience from birth all the way through to death, and there are an infinite number of transitions and moments and opportunities, and embrace the those transition points, those moments, the embrace the chaos and create. What do you want to create? Who do you want to be? And how can you show up to be the best, example that you can be, to express who you are as a divine being having a human experience from one moment to the next.
Right. Beautiful. Thank you, Jere. I appreciate you for sharing all that. It's been a wonderful conversation. And for you, I just want to say, no matter where you are in your life, it's a virtual certainty that you will go through some or all of the life transitions we have discussed. You can resist at the cost of perhaps missing out on some wonderful adventures with great benefits. Or you can accept gracefully what life delivers you and emerge from each transition stronger, wiser, and more fulfilled. Remember, the choice is yours. So, thank you all for watching today's program. Remember, you can watch recordings of this and all other previous episodes on my website at lifemasterytv.com. And finally, I'd like to invite you to remember to practice the Life Mastery mantra every single day. It goes like this: I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So until we meet again, my name is David McLeod, your Life Mastery Coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. See you next time on Life Mastery TV.